I often tell people that I've spent my life moving north to escape the heat. That's certainly true, but there is more to this story, and I'm going to share it with you. Chapter 1, Origin of the Species. My paternal grandparents grew up in northwestern Pennsylvania. My grandfather became a surgeon and enlisted in the Army. My father lived on Army bases all over the world. My maternal grandparents came from California. This grandfather was a naval officer. My mother and father met and married while both sets of grandparents were stationed in Fort Monroe, Virginia. I was born at Brooke Army Hospital in San Antonio, Texas. Thus began my journey north as we moved from Fort Sam to Fort Monroe. We moved further north to Delaware, and in the interim, my brother was born. We moved north again to Bethesda, Maryland when I was 6, as my father began his career as an historian at the Smithsonian. Chapter 2, Coming of Age. It is hard to imagine Washington, D.C. in the 1960s. The metro did not exist. The political climate was entirely different. As a child, I was very aware of politics, but it was also very personal. My parents enrolled me in a private Catholic girls' school called Stone Ridge. I found myself in school with the daughters of Robert Kennedy, Eunice Kennedy Shriver, and Gene McCarthy. It's stunning as I look back on this. These famous people actually knew who I was. As JFK faced the Cuban Missile Crisis, we practiced duck and cover drills. When JFK was assassinated, I knelt in the chapel with his nieces to pray that he would not die. I came of age with Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech, Freedom Riders, and the assassinations of Malcolm X, Medgar Evers, and Martin Luther King. It was a time of profound social unrest, hippies, Vietnam, massive peace marches, draft resistance, and more. It touched me personally when in 1968, Bobby Kennedy was killed. The world was never the same without his idealism. Bryn Mawr College was the best thing that ever happened to me. While the turbulent world moved around me, I had lived a relatively sheltered existence at Stone Ridge. I arrived at Bryn Mawr woefully unprepared for the rigors of education among the Seven Sisters. The first year was extremely difficult, but I got the hang of things and graduated cum laude. I earned my master's degree and headed to New York City to find my life. Chapter 3, The Rat Race. I met my future husband in Brooklyn. John was a Colgate graduate, and his father, Robert, was a beloved English professor. Thus began my long love affair with Hamilton and, of course, John Blackmore. In 1981, I enrolled in Brooklyn Law School. I'd planned to advocate for social justice and affordable housing. In reality, I made law review, earned a coveted position at one of the city's preeminent firms, and concentrated on real property law. There, I developed a lifelong distaste for investment bankers. The rat race began. John and I married at St. Thomas Episcopal Church in Hamilton in 1982. Carrie, a Colgate graduate and founder of Good Nature Farm Brewery, arrived, followed by Rob, a gifted musician. I and others of my generation thought that we could have it all. In retrospect, I'm not so sure. It was incredibly stressful, and I often felt that I was dropping the ball either at home or at work. This was my life until we moved to Hamilton in 2006. Chapter 4, Loss. In 2002, shortly before his father died, John was diagnosed with mantle cell lymphoma. When it became clear that the cancer would win, I convinced him to move to Hamilton. We bought a beautiful house and 40 acres of woodland about 4 miles from Hamilton. My father died in 2010, followed by John in 2011, my mother in 2014, and my dear mother-in-law in 2015. This was a difficult period, but we got through it. Chapter 5, On My Own. My family and a welcoming community not only saved me from the rat race, but also buoyed me up when life seemed too sad to contemplate. I always relied heavily on John to maintain our social life. Here, I knew all of his parents' friends, his childhood and college friends, and my own friends. My daughter lives here, and my son is nearby in Ithaca. I joined singing groups, served on not-for-profit boards, did some pro bono legal work, went to the gym, took yoga classes, and, best of all, became a grandmother. Perhaps there should be another chapter to this story called the COVID years. These 2 years have not been easy, and yes, this too shall pass. I have my friends, my health, and a purpose in life as a grandmother. I'm very lucky indeed.